Hey, Star Trek folks, it's me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, and however you found your way here to my channel, friend or stranger, human or alien, I want to welcome you to everything Trekland, and especially this, the public apex of our backstage monthly deep dives live, Portal 47. I mean, I can't believe it's been 10 years since I created and launched the portal, your backstage path to more in-depth Trek. Where no savvy fan has gone before? Yeah. It really is the Star Trek you have no idea about. On the backstage side, which adds so much more to all those shows when you're looking to have even more detail and in-depth info about your favorite Star Treks. Because it's the people that created them. So this is a very special edition of our annual Apex of that Apex. Our Portal 47 anniversary open house each year, where we give away free samples, it is an open house, of what's live at our monthly Portal backstage package. Hey, make a note right now, if you could, for next fall to join us once we announce the date and the guest, and you can get in for that night, right, in advance for our, basically an open mic night for our Ask Dr. Trek roundtable from the package. And since it's open house, we have door prizes. But the live highlight here, as it is every month in the portal, is our guest. Now, they're always of the non-actor variety, and they're always someone from any production niche, anywhere up and down the credits ladder, from any era, as long as they can bring the Trek insights, the tales, and the industry awareness, and the cool personal picks. That's just going to add so much to our understanding of the episodes that we love so much. And they're folks that you've likely never heard or seen anywhere else, live or on camera. Or if you have, you've barely got to hear from them, right? Look, here's just a sample. 12 people a year, 10 years now. Yeah, I like to think that our guests all through the year are great. But for an open house like this, yeah, I like to save some of the most textured Trek folks for open house. I mean, look, we have had creative Trek giants like, well, our first year, the late, great Robert Butler now, director of The Cage, original TOS pilot, and I'm so glad we have that recorded. And then since, Mike Westmore, David Livingston, David Carson, René Echevaria, Ira Steven Behr, Robert Hewitt Wolfe, Mike McMahan, Nick Meyer, the Hageman brothers, and now David A. Goodman. Now, David's official Trek cred, yes, is those 2 middle seasons as a writer-producer on Enterprise. But look, he's also got his classic episode where no fan has gone before on Futurama that got him the Enterprise job. And then his years with his buddy Seth MacFarlane on Family Guy and The Orville. And yes, even his Star Trek nonfiction, did you know? Federation 150 Years book, and the autobiographies of Kirk and Picard. And then, hey, the years he spent as Writers Guild of America Union president, and then the negotiations committee chair during the Hollywood strikes in 2023. I mean, what is up with the industry these days? Animation and live action. Is Hollywood actually holding on to anything anymore? Well, we're going to get into all of that, as you'll see. And we'll get into his personal picks, too. I want to take advantage of all of that in the best Dr. Trek Portal 47 way. So, here's David. Thank you for doing this. And
I'm
you
so
are
excited to be here. Oh my God.
the other open house guests I've had, I started with Robert Butler, who directed The Cage 10 years ago.
Wow, yeah. You don't need to tell me who that is. Yeah.
And then who just passed, but he was great that night. And but like Ira and Robert and Mike McMahan and the Hagemans more recently, and Westmore and a lot of good people. But thanks for doing this. And it dawned on me after I said this that it'll be a little bit unusual because I've got some pictures and I've got some of the photos you shared with me and all that. But I just want to start off. We'll talk the Trek, and we can talk a little Family Guy and Orville as how Trek spilled over on it, maybe in your mind anyway.
Sure.
And then I want to wind up with the strikes and what the hell is going on with the industry, because you've been in animation, you've been in live action, you've been in the labor hot seat. and we're all wondering what the hell is going on, and what does it mean for Trek and
Me
genre.
too. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Let's go back. I feel like this is your life.
fine.
Where did it all start, Mr. Goodman?
That's the big go. Go ahead.
Woo, woo, woo. How did you now? I normally would say to our monthly guests, how did you wind up on Star Trek's doorstep? I know how you wound up on Star Trek's doorstep. You wound up on Futurama's doorstep.
Right.
How
Well,
did you get to Futurama's doorstep?
Well, I had done. I'd been a sitcom writer for a very long time.
Born and raised. Born and raised.
Oh, you want me to go back even further?
Just
all right, good. Back to
20 words or less.
I was born in New Rochelle, New York. It's a suburb of New York City.
Where Rob Petrie lived.
Rob Petrie and also Carl Reiner, who created the Dick Van Dyke Show and lived in New Rochelle when he wrote that show. And went to college, first to a state university in New York, in Albany, and then the University of Chicago. And was a political science major, did not really think that writing for television was even a possibility. But eventually I met a guy who was my age who'd already written for David Letterman, which was a very weird thing. I was raised by a single mom. She was a social worker. There really wasn't any show business in my family. And to meet somebody who was my age, who'd already written for television, and he was back in college, was like a mind expanding. And I'd read The Making of Star Trek, and I'd always thought that would be, I mean, at that time, Star Trek, there was no Star Trek on, but I thought, I would love to write for Star Trek. But I found my way into writing.
So you were a Star Trek fan from way back.
Do I have to bring up my exploration set? Do I have to?
I'm just putting it out there. I knew.
That's Edith Keeler. I put her on the window there.
Oh, very nice.
But yes.
The president and Edith Keeler spent time today. Yeah.
I go back to Star Trek as I was born in early 60s, and so I didn't see it in the first run, but 1970s WPIX in New York, 6 o'clock every night, 7 o'clock on Sundays, was how you watch Star Trek, holding a cassette microphone up to the TV to record Mirror
audio tape
and the Enterprise incident and all that. I'm a Trek fan. I'm not an original because I didn't watch it when it aired, but I'm an original rerun.
No, you're a rerun baby, like I am.
Rerun baby.
Yeah, after school and yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So at what point, I feel like, what parts of the story do you want?
Well, I'm just so because of that friend, your eyes lit up. TV writing.
TV writing. This is a job. I could get this job. And in the 80s, it was different. Nobody knew that was a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was no internet, and unless you were, into reading about the making of movies and TV, you didn't even know that writing for TV was a job. If you brought up in Los Angeles, I know a lot of people now, because I've lived in Los Angeles since 1988. I know a lot of people who grew up in Los Angeles and their dads were TV writers. My doctor's father wrote for Ben Casey, the medical.
Wow.
Show, that kind of thing, like when you and I. Yeah. So if you were brought up in LA, you knew that, but outside of LA, you really didn't know that, and so.
Even if you'd read The Making of Star Trek, it still didn't sink in. That's really, something they do in LA.
It really didn't, and then. I ended up just trying to get a job in some way having to do with television, and I got a job in New York working for a production company in New York, and I was an assistant. I was a secretary to this woman who was a TV writer, and she had written for sitcoms, and so I had a writing partner at the time, and that was the way we went in. We went in trying to write for sitcoms, and we got hired on The Golden Girls, and that obviously was at 25 to be to go to be on a top 10 show. And then 2 years later, we were fired from the Golden Girls. But we had those 2 years. And but that was how I broke in. And then 10 years on various sitcoms.
Yep.
My partner and I broke up very amicably. He's a very talented guy. And then I ended up on Family Guy. Now, this was Family Guy in its third season before it really became the phenomenon it would become.
And before Futurama.
Well, it was around the same time as Futurama.
Okay.
But I got on Family Guy first.
Okay.
We did our season. It was the third season. It was canceled. But Seth MacFarlane made a call for me, and because he thought I would. Yeah, I wanted to get on Futurama. That was actually the show I wanted to be on. And he helped me get that job. He called one of the producers, and I got a job interview. And in the job interview with David Cohen, he asked me if I was a science fiction fan, and I pulled this out, my communicator keychain. And so that helped me get the job. That's the only time something like that has ever helped anybody get a job. And and obviously, and in that moment, they were considering a Star Trek Futurama episode. They had gotten tacit approval. Look at how young I am. I look like a.
I was going to say, do you remember this? This was my photo. This is in your office, at the Hart Building.
Yeah.
It's like December of 2002.
It must have been 2002, 2001.
Yeah.
2002, 2003, maybe. A long time ago. That's upsetting.
I've been promoting with this picture, so you're welcome.
That's a picture's upsetting me. Anyway, because I look so young. Get
that calendar. Chip's line was out.
They had gotten Shatner and Nimoy to agree to do an episode of Futurama, and they were throwing around ideas for the episode. And the one they were considering was a giant Shatner and Nimoy fighting in New York. I don't know where that idea came from. And then I had been there 2 or 3 weeks, and in that 2 or 3 weeks, David Cohen, the showrunner, in a room full of Star Trek fans, decided I had to write the Star Trek episode because I was the biggest Star Trek fan on Futurama, which was a high bar.
Wow. Now, are you talking about Where No Fan's Gone Before, or something else? Because your name attached to this?
Where No Fan Has Gone Before. It became this episode, and I got to write this script, and we figured out the story, and but it was obviously one of the proudest moments of I'm not being sincere, proudest moments of my career was getting to write this episode, then getting to rewrite the episode with the staff who added a lot of great jokes, and then recording it. And one of Shatner's, the story, the great story was Shatner had given a sort of a tentative yes, and then he was suddenly reticent. So we had to get on the phone with him and Matt Groening, co-creator of Futurama, and David Cohen, and I got on the phone with Shatner to try to convince him to do it because he'd read the script and he just wasn't into it. And Shatner hated the script. I mean, he was like, well, I would do it if it was clever or original or funny, but I don't think it's any of those things. He was really taking a big crap on it. But David Cohen, who's a sweet guy, was like, well, what could we do? What could we add? What could we do that would make? And he said, well, if there was something about my friendship with Leonard, and so there's a scene in Futurama where they say goodbye, and that's what we added, and that was enough for Shatner to do the show. Which is, it's a funny scene, and then he wanted to, and then we offered that he could record with Leonard. So we had Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner recording the episode together. I recently lost my home in the Palisades fire, and one of the saddest things I lost was that recording session on a CD. I had that, and that
Oh,
I never digitized. I'm gonna kill myself over that. But Nimoy was hilarious because he shows up before Shatner. He says, "Let's hurry and get my stuff done so I don't have to see Shatner." And we're all worried. He didn't want to record with Shatner, but he was just joking. And then at the end of the episode, at the end, all the entire Futurama crew was watching from the booth, and Shatner didn't know that. At the end, they all like almost 100 people came out because they wanted to shake his hand, and he looked so frightened. But obviously, that was a real, as a Star Trek fan, just an amazing moment.
yeah. Who is this? And somebody in the chat said, "Is that the metamorphosis cloud?" Oh, Melanie.
Or the obsession cloud. Good question.
Yeah.
We said energy being. I think it was closer to the metamorphosis cloud because obsession cloud didn't talk, whereas we did get to hear the metamorphosis cloud. And it was really interesting in the Futurama room. You had actual scientists, like people who had masters and PhDs in physics and chemistry, and there was a discussion that an energy cloud is not something Futurama would do, which because it didn't have a basis in fact. But David Cohen's like, I think we're gonna go forward with this anyway. It's Star Trek. We're doing this.
He should, yeah. Of course, it has a basis in fact. I saw it on Star Trek.
I saw it on Star Trek.
It was there. So let me undo this. So Sean, who's been present here, I had a couple of questions out of the chat sent early. So this was a hit.
And
the whole thing with Welsh.
This existed, Mona. You didn't know this existed? Oh my God.
Mona's in Indianapolis. What can I say?
No, I never knew this existed. Sorry.
No, well, now go watch it, Mona.
I know. I just looked it up.
Oh, good.
There you go. Another win for the internet. No, so Jimmy was still around, but he wasn't capable of recording. So the whole Welchie story.
I think he actually said no. He was capable of recording. At that point, he was still alive. He was still, but his exact response was no way when he didn't want to do it at all. But he was, and then the original title of the script was "We Got Everybody But Scotty." We got everybody but Scotty. Forrest had already passed away, so it was
right. And he doesn't have a line, right?
He doesn't. He's in there. We felt like it was kind of
he's emoting and everything, but he's not. Yeah,
we felt like it was actually sweeter to not have somebody imitate his voice or
do a ham-handed. And this was before even Carl Urban could have. You might have even gone that way.
About seven. No, about 9 or 10 years before.
Yeah, way before all that. Yeah. So you were on Futurama for a while. Did this episode?
I think 14 or 15 episodes, and then that was canceled. But that episode aired, and Chris Black, who was on Enterprise.
So I was gonna. So let me do this. Oh. So Sean Quinlan wants to know how exactly did Where No Fan's Gone Before help David get a job on Enterprise? Did someone on the staff watch the episode and reach out to you because of it, or did people on the show only watch the Futurama episode after they were in discussions with you for other reasons? Well, I think.
Well, it's an interesting story. It's a long. I don't know. You tell me if it's too long a story. So there's a writer named Jose Molina, and Jose is written a lot of sci-fi. And he at that moment in time he had just been hired by Firefly. Firefly was on just when. So I was looking for a job. Futurama had been canceled, and so I said to my agent, "Why don't we try Star Trek?" I'm a big Star Trek fan. I'd never really written this kind of work before in television. I'd always been comedy, but I felt like I'm a giant Star Trek fan. This is what I'd always wanted to do. Let's try. My agent called up Brannon Braga, co-showrunner of Enterprise. You guys obviously know who he is. And what had happened was Brannon had tried to hire Jose for Enterprise. and Jose and I have talked about this, tried to hire Jose for Enterprise. But Joss Whedon at Firefly had scooped him up. So Brannon was a little pissed about that. And around that same time, I had also gotten a job interview with Joss Whedon at Firefly, but they didn't offer me a job. But Joss liked meeting me and said to my agent, "We're going to think about David." And so my agent told Brannon that. He said, "Well, David, they're thinking about David over at Firefly," which was kind of a stretching of the truth, which is good agenting. And Brannon, wanting to get back at Joss Whedon for stealing Jose, said, "Well, I want to meet David." And Chris Black, who was on Enterprise as a co-EP, was a big Futurama fan. And he had seen Where No Fans Come From. So he was in the job interview and he was talking, he thought it was great to bring me on because Enterprise was trying for a lighter tone and they thought it'd be good to have a comedy person there. And so it was a meeting with John Scheiben, who was co-EP at the time, with Chris Black and Brannon. And what I say about that meeting was, again, I was a giant Star Trek fan. So for the last, I don't know, 10 years before that meeting, or 8 years, I've been reading everything about all the Star Trek shows, Next Gen, and then Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and I've read a lot of interviews with Brannon. And so I just started parroting back to Brannon things he'd said in interviews about why he likes Star Trek. Well, it's a Western 1 week, it's a mystery the next kind of thing. And Brannon would say, "Yeah, well, that's how I feel." Not remembering he'd said, not thinking this guy sitting across from him had been reading these interviews.
Smart.
And
did your research.
I didn't pull out the communicator because I knew how Brannon felt about the original series. And then my agent kept pressing him, but they hired me. And that was just an amazing, the story there too, which I pulled up at the Paramount lot. Again, you've heard what a giant Star Trek fan I've been since a kid. I pull up at the lot. I call Brannon's office. Larry, you probably know where this story's going. I call Brannon's office to make sure there's a pass for me to get on the lot. The assistant on the other side of the line says, "David, first day, welcome to Star Trek." And that person is Terry Matalas,
yep.
Who would go on to now be the shepherd of the franchise. So that was very exciting. Brannon took me down to the set the first day, and he's talking to someone and said, "Oh, David, this is Herman Zimmerman." And it's like, Herman Zimmerman, oh my God, I'm such a huge fan of, and that having those moments as a fan, writer. I met Larry Nemecek, whose work I've been reading in the fan files, like all that stuff. So
I think you had a few people in line ahead of me. That's
all right.
But that's okay. It's so, I want to keep moving through your shows and get into everything else, but I'd forgotten that part of your experience, but it's, as a fan watching this or as somebody covering the show, it's kind of like, well, eventually Ron Moore started got hired by the skin of his teeth to be a writer on Next Gen. And then Narain and Brannon and Andre and all, and all those guys. And Brian got into Voyager. And it's kind of like, can we just start? That's why I think, and we can talk about this later on, about the two animated modern shows, Prodigy but it's like, can we just start off sometime where, and nothing against the people that were there, but can we just start off a show sometime, a Trek, where the fanboy writers start the show and don't gradually climb the ladder and creep up midway and fix everything that was fuzzy and sloppy about the early years?
It's a business. That's the part of it, and there's a way in which business doesn't operate, doesn't unfortunately operate that way sometimes. I think Rick Berman takes it on the chin in a lot of ways, but Rick eventually figured out who he needed to hire to deliver the Star Trek of that period of the 90s and then early 2000s, which as fans we love. But he wasn't a Star Trek fan, but he was a smart businessman and figured it out. Hire Michael Piller, hire Ira Behr, hire Jerry Taylor, all those people who delivered these great shows.
Yeah. Well, let me go back and share some things, and let's start stepping through your enterprise. But here's another angle. This is my favorite picture because I remember walking it because it's a requirement if you're in the art department or you're a writer that you've got to have all your action figures around you. And so this is what DC is. This Justice League over here or whatever?
Oh, I don't see it. Where is it?
Oh, I'm not. I thought I was sharing. I'm not sharing. There we go. These guys.
Yeah, I don't remember what brand of series that is, but that's if you see the Dinky Enterprise, which I'm very sad that I lost. But that was some. I don't remember. There was a period where this brand of superhero action figures, and then there's some Planet of the Apes behind me, I think.
Here.
Yeah.
I just remember because this is the first time I did the sit down at the end of the year or whatever interview with you.
Yeah.
And I just remember I said, "Oh, I like your decoration." And you said, "Yeah, that's the new Xindi Council," or something.
That's hilarious. That's what a good joke. I had no idea.
They should have. They should have hired you for humor. Okay.
They should have.
So you're one of the newer writers, second season, right? And come in and but you hit the ground running and
I had a rough start. It was I really did need to learn how to write this kind of show. It's an interesting thing. You think as a Star Trek fan you're going to know right away, and they had a way of writing, and again, I'd written in comedy, which was very different, and I had done
and animation, right?
And animation, but
yeah,
I'd done a 1 hour show myself, which I don't bring up, which didn't. That wasn't I didn't really have experience of joining a 1 hour staff, and so from my first season, it was a bit of a learning curve. But so my first episode was
Precious Cargo,
which was considered, I think it was, they had that list of all the episodes, and what was it, Playboy, or who did that list of, and I think Precious Cargo was like third worst of all the episodes of all the series, and that was that one was a tough thing, and I think that Brandon might have felt some buyer's remorse in hiring me after that, and then, but I kept trying, and there was a Klingon story floating around that the writer Taylor Elmore had sold that Brandon liked. He liked the idea of it. Taylor Elmore would go on to create Justify as a big writer, but this was at the beginning.
People forget that now, but all these talk about actors. How about the writers that started on Star Trek and then
exactly? And so I took it and I gave Brandon some ideas about it that I thought would make it really, really work. And he sort of gave me a second chance. And we worked on that story. And obviously there's a lot of allusions to Star Trek 6 in it, which, I think is a terrific movie. I saw it 12 times in the theater. But also there's a story in there about Klingons, and that Klingons weren't, that not all Klingons can be warriors, that you have to have Klingon lawyers and accountants and doctors, and that was sort of part of what the story. At the time, we were involved in the war in Iraq, and I thought about the fact that around the world, a lot of people, the only thing they know about Americans is our people in uniform, and for better or for worse, sometimes it's a great thing. And sometimes if you were an Iraqi in the early 2000s, it probably wasn't a great thing. You probably, if that's the only Americans you knew. And I thought that's the Klingons. The Klingons we know are the soldiers. Who are the Klingons who are and that was sort of the genesis of that story, getting to know this Klingon. And I was a huge fan of all of Ron Moore's
Yeah.
Klingon stories and wanted it to tie in. I had to tie in to those stories as best I could. And Brandon, Brandon and Rick were happy with how that episode came out.
Yeah.
And at the end of the season, John Scheiben, who was leaving the show, his last moments with Brandon was keep Goodman, and which I always owe him for, because I don't know that Brandon had made that decision yet. And I had spent a lot of time breaking stories with John Scheiben and Chris Black during the season, which Brandon may not have known. Like, I would be in the room with them and help them, and then they would go pitch it to Brandon. And the fact that John, sort of wanted Brandon to know David's been doing a lot of Ceasefire. Chris Black and I co-broke. It was the two of us working on that. There were a couple of other stories that season, which I played a heavy role in. And so I got to come back for season 3.
It's the thing that audiences and fans don't always get about. You have your credited show. Sometimes somebody's got a credit or even the lone credit, and it's like a young writer, and the showrunner comes in and does a complete redo, but they let the young writer have the credit to start off with. Or it's really a think tank of 5 and 2 names wind up on it or something.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. Well, you're good on Precious Cargo, because we've had so many people on back, everybody from the stage, and all people really remember about that show is they left the water in the tank over the weekend, and when they came back on Monday, it stunk. No, it stunk. It had been standing water, and they had to get in it, and nobody wanted to fight in the water, and all the stunt people and extras were, So people have completely forgotten about your script. But I think I walked by the Hart Building, and you were like all down because you got your first notes.
Yeah, wow, good memory. Yeah.
And you were kind of, it's like a little snapshot. But I was like, yeah. But the other thing about then Judgment is they had the good sense to have J.G. Hertzler come in and play.
Right. He was wonderful, and he was very complimentary of my script. And then Bacula was in that Captain's DVD set. I don't know if you remember. There was he picked that as one of his favorite episodes because of some of the words that I gave him about, like, there's a speech he has in there about why things got better on Earth, why people decided, and he thought that's stuck with him, and I thought that was really nice.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. I'm going to keep up with the chat here a little bit too.
Okay.
They're talking about how Connor refused to get in the water.
Oh yeah.
In the tank. We've had a lot of Dave Trotty, a lot of the stage crew people. So like, oh my God, that's one of the immortal, stories of the time. So then. The thing I remember is you said one of the things you'd always wanted to do was do a Western for Star Trek, and you got your chance.
Well, I think for me, it was really that I wanted to do a parallel planet story, like in the original series.
Yeah.
As you all know, the way of saving money on costumes and sets was to, go to the Roman planet, the Nazi planet, whatever. And I thought, how can we modernize that, because we don't have those same restrictions in a modern television show that you have to do that. They were doing that to save money.
Yeah.
Is there a story we could do? And so the idea to me was it was inspired by a book by the science fiction writer Paul Anderson, who wrote a book called The High Crusade, which is about aliens who kidnap some knights, or aliens land on Earth in medieval times, and a bunch of knights take over the ship, and then they go and conquer the galaxy. And it's a great book. And I thought, what if aliens kidnapped a wagon train, and then they brought the wagon train back as slaves, and then the slaves revolted and took over the planet. And that was basically the pitch. And Rick loved it, which he didn't always love pitches, and he loved that pitch. and don't change a word, go ahead.
And he knew it was your pitch.
And he knew it was my pitch. Well, at this point, things had changed. I had a different. Rick's kid was a Family Guy fan. So Rick started watching Family Guy. So Rick started calling me to ask about, because I had worked on Family Guy, he wanted, and then, is there any way my kid can meet Seth MacFarlane? And I arranged that. And so there were, things that I was doing that Rick was, more open to me. I wasn't hanging under the sword of Damocles anymore.
You're in the family, Dave. Yeah. So I should have said this. Ed Pogue, who's one of our folks tonight, sent this question ahead of time asking about this show. He said he's a big fan of North Star. He said it's one of his all-time favorites of Enterprise.
Oh, thank you, Ed.
And he's asking, was there a mandate from the studio to create a Western, or is it totally yours? And it sounds like it was totally yours.
Totally mine. And, I just thought, it was, we shot that on the back lot of Universal. So right around the corner is the Jaws ride, which was funny to me. And that David Straighten, the director, I think just really elevated that show. Like the lighting, he created that kind of alien feeling. And I think this is the only time up to this point in the history of Star Trek that you saw a shuttle land by real buildings.
Yes.
And I know that seems like a small thing, but it's, as a Star Trek fan, to see like a shuttle passing by real buildings, I felt like that was like a weird kind of first we had. But again, like all the stunt stuff, all the, David, the director, really just didn't. And then, Glenn Morshower playing the sheriff.
Yeah. Obviously. Who's done a million. He said this was of all the Star Trek. He's like, when he was a young guy, he was a lieutenant on TNG and all that. He said this was his favorite of all of his Trek roles.
Yeah, he did it. He was terrific. And I forgot the name of the actor who played the bad guy. And Chris Black did a rewrite. Like I wrote the script, and then Chris did a rewrite, which added a lot of great.
This was the angle I kept wanting Landru to pop in on a projector somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. No, there was.
I was going to say, when the way you worded that in TNG, when they went on location out by the Brandeis, the thing of the book. They took a shuttle pod out there and parked it in the field, but we didn't see it land. And that was amazing to see that shuttle pod.
There's just like a tracking shot of the shuttle flying past the buildings. And
they have
something weird about this shot. And I realized, we've never seen that before, at least at that time.
This is it. I just love having a shuttle pod here in front of a water windmill.
Yeah. So, no, it was super fun. A super fun shoot, and I think the episode came out really well.
Yeah. And I remember they used the Western town at Universal because the Western town at Warner Brothers that had been with Worf and Alexander and Fistful of Datas.
Yeah.
They had right after that they shot that, and then The Last Samurai, and then The Last Samurai, which was more like San Francisco than 1890s than what. And then after that, they ripped out the Western town. So it's the only Western town in town was the Universal.
Well, there is another Western town but it's up a little ways up off of Malibu, but it was burned down on Malibu, eventually burned down in a Malibu fire, but where they shot Dr. Quinn Medicine one.
That one. Right. Topanga Canyon.
Right.
Yeah. State Park. Yes. Yeah. And so this was.
I vaguely remember the story. No modern advances. How did these colonists get into space? They were kidnapped. That's part of the story. They were kidnapped and made slaves.
So do I show the picture that we almost ran that one time, or do I not show that one?
Oh, you can.
I'm only doing this because we were talking same day I was those other older pictures, and. Innocent 2003, you were saying I've always wanted to do a Western, and we shot it's the same angle.
Yeah. But
and then I pulled it out to run it for your birthday one year, and you were like, "Can we not use the gun?"
well,
Point.
I think there had been some kind of shooting or something.
Yeah,
like that.
right around there.
The
Yeah,
timing was like, we don't want that to be a picture.
We don't want to draw that connection, especially with that look on your face. Yeah. So now we're in this. So going from season 2, this is Zindi year.
Yes.
So let me hold on a second. So here's the thing: Enterprise big picture. So you're in the gang. So they say keep Goodman. So do you remember? And I've since heard this from Dave Rossi and people, but second season the show was already on thin ice. And I know this is like coming to Rick and Brannon, but do you remember
Yeah.
they said the ratings are slumping. You guys need to shake it up. They telling Rick and Brannon, got to shake it up. And the whole Zindi arc was the response to, here's what we're going to do to goose the ratings and go more actiony.
Yeah.
Well, that coming down to you all, or did you just?
We heard about it, and interestingly, my office was on the front of the Hart building, and I remember I would sometimes hear conversations that happened on the stoop. And one of the conversations I overheard was between Rick and Brannon. It was either before or after the meeting with the network or studio, talking about like this pitch that they're going to do to get the next season. And I think that there are a lot of problems with the Zindi arc. I mean, I think just being blunt and honest, but the idea of a planet with multiple intelligent species, I feel like no one's ever done that. No one's ever seen that on TV, and I thought that there was this great idea at the core of it, and some great ideas that we all then developed as a staff. But yeah, there was like, I don't know that I'm not sure the show was going to get canceled, although I wasn't involved so I may be wrong. But I do know that they were just getting pressure to juice it up.
Yeah, I mean, the third season with the Zindi year was a given. It wasn't hanging on the pitch. Right. It was going to happen. Right. It was the end of the third where it almost got axed. But
right. And I think they cut some budget and stuff together.
Yeah.
But
I remember that they kind of wobbled into it. We may go we may go 4 episodes, we may go 6, we may go and they didn't even know that they'd do the whole year until they got into it. And a lot of the detail wasn't, I mean, the Zindi kind of were, but the bigger detail wasn't hashed out, right?
We then, once they sold the network on the idea of it, then the writers, Brandon convened the writers actually at his house one weekend, and then we were getting back to work, but like trying to figure out this, serialized storytelling, which was still a relatively new thing in television. I mean, 24 had been on, and
they're still trying to figure it out, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. But 24 had been on, and that 24 was like a game changer. Like, oh my God, a network show that's completely serialized. That was like part of the gimmick of it. And so
even more than Lost. Oh, this is before Lost.
Before Lost, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, it was breaking new ground, trying to figure out how to do a show that was episodic. The thing about Star Trek is each episode is beginning, middle, and end. There were cliffhangers, but and here was a story, an arc for a whole season. That was a new thing.
Yeah. It wasn't just figuring out the story; it was the tone and how do you tell Star Trek, which is something they were still grappling with 15 years later or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's a tough thing. I think that it's a tough thing to figure out because part of my love of Star Trek is, again, the rerun kids. There's no first episode. Like, it's the first one you watched. And then it's like, and then as you discover as you watch it, somebody's paying attention that there's a consistency to this world and there's depth, and then you're like collecting the episodes again before having a VCR. You're like, I want to, and I'm reading books, and I'm like, but that's part of the charm of Star Trek is you could feel like you could jump in, and I think this is something that people forget about Star Trek is there's this group of fans like us who are just like, we'll watch anything that's Star Trek, we'll criticize it, but we'll watch anything. But the fact is, Star Trek was an enormously popular show with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not on 7 days a week in New York if it's just Star Trek fans watching it. Everybody watched Star Trek. And that's one of the things I think people have kind of forgotten about it who are making the new one is, I think, it's like, you want this show to be something that somebody can watch who's never watched any Star Trek. That is a story and characters, actors compelling that pull you in and want you to watch it. Anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Well, let's jump ahead.
Okay.
I'm keeping an eye on the time. So this was kind of a ways into the Xindi year for The Forgotten, which is your credited next credit.
Yeah. Well, Chris and I split that episode up. We worked it out together, and I don't remember. I think he wrote Act 1, I wrote Act 2, he wrote Act 3, I wrote Act 4, or we split up the acts, and then we gave the acts to each other, and we sort of put it all together. And again, Chris is a terrific writer, and I learned a lot working on that show with him. We did this episode, which guest stars. You got a picture of Seth MacFarlane as Ensign? There he is.
Oh, of course I do. Yes.
And this is Seth in the wilderness years when Family Guy had been canceled, and he hadn't quite. Family Guy hadn't come back, and he wasn't doing movies yet, and
he had some time open.
A little bit of time, and he was a big Star Trek fan. And I said to Rick and Brannon, Rick, who was a big Family Guy fan, and Brannon, I think this was the week, like, Seth and Brannon became friends. Like, they have this now long professional and also personal friendship that started with me introducing them on this episode.
There you go. Ensign River, or Crewman Rivers, or Ensign Rivers became.
I don't know that he had a name in The Forgotten. I don't think he got the name until.
He got the name later. Yes. Yeah. But the important thing is to get the. As all the extras know, it's the important thing to get the name. Now, this was having this many extras and doing this kind of a show. Like, they did this later on in a Mirror Darkly, the Mirror Show, but that was the Mirror Show. This was kind of cool to have everybody on.
Philip, I agree with you. I love the mini arcs on season 4. I think they did a great job.
But anyway, so yeah. So speaking of, then here you go. Of course, you have to commemorate it. So I love that picture. So that's your only credited. You probably did a lot more work beyond that, but this was your last credited episode.
Yeah, I was involved in the breaking of the stories. I'm pretty sure that I contributed the idea that the globes were connected, and that would lead to whatever. I think that was my idea. But I contributed other things in specific episodes, working with the other writers but you also had that Manny, the late great Manny Cotto, joined that season. I loved working with Manny. Great guy, such a big Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
And
well, I got to say the fourth season, which I know you were around for part of that because I have the photo proof here, but or at least visiting. But again, why did the fanboys all come along later? But anyway, the fourth season was like, oh, this is the series I thought it was going to be. Maybe not every single episode leading into an original
it was like
concept, but
you needed one more year. Season 5 would have. I think they would have, they worked out all the kinks, and it would have been.
Yeah. So, did you get offered I mean, why did, so I'll ask you, why did you leave?
I left because at the end of season uh,
Three.
uh, Seth MacFarlane got the order to pick up Family Guy, and I had worked with Seth in the third season, and he wanted me to run the show with him, and that was an opportunity that I could not turn down, and so I left.
You could not refuse.
It was. I mean, that was for my career a very important job, and I didn't like having to leave Star Trek. I enjoyed that job quite a bit, but I left. So
yeah. So this is what I was thinking. I mean, I misspoke a minute ago. So of all the Family Guys, and you and still right, the one that there's all the crazy throwouts and throwaways and cut-ins and all that, and the Trek but the episode, and I didn't realize until today that it's doesn't have your name on it.
I didn't write it.
Yeah. You know what we're talking about.
Yes. Not all dogs go to heaven.
Not all dogs go to heaven. So were you in the inner circle this at all, or had anything?
Oh, yeah. No, I was running the show with Seth.
I was going to say, yeah.
So there's a lot of me in that episode. A lot of and I'm actually in the episode.
Were you?
When we get to I play a nerd who asks a question at the Star Trek convention, and then there's a cut scene. Have you seen the cut scene, Larry?
There you are. Boom. I knew I had you here.
Have you seen the cut scene?
I don't think I've seen the cut scene.
I put it up on my Instagram, I think, where it was so basically the scene was two nerds arguing. I'm arguing with somebody who's saying in the episode Relics, how could Scotty think Scotty had to know that Kirk was dead? How could he think that Kirk was alive? And my character says, well, Geordi said there was a 0.3% degradation, so that would account for his memory loss, which is how I explain that. And then, so we're having that argument, and then Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes come and beat us up. So it's a funny little clip that got cut from the episode, but it's on the internet somewhere. So that I had a lot to do. When I was running the show, I really participated in all the episodes in figuring out the story and jokes and all those things, but I let other people write the scripts and get the credit. So
there we go. There we that. So, and again, this is a Star Trek event, and people could. Have you ever done the Mission Log Orville show with Mike? And
I have, sure, absolutely.
I was going to say you're out there on the Orville, so I don't. But my big picture question, my big thing here is, how did you? When Seth says I want to do this show, it's original, it's next generation ish, but it's. I mean, did you go okay, sure? And I mean, what were some of the hangover or leftover, or I don't know. It's like when Ron went to do Battlestar, it was like, if you'd seen DS9, he's getting to do DS9 again, the way he would have liked to have done it without Rick and Paramount. So it's like, was there
the story involves
hangover from
the story involves me pretty heavily, because we were, Seth had talks with Paramount before they gave it to Brian Fuller to do the new Star Trek. He wanted to participate in that, and they went with Brian Fuller, and Seth and I were just having a conversation about that. We were fans of Brian's, and so it was not, but Seth, was disappointed because he'd always wanted to do Star Trek, and then I said, well, you probably could just do your own. And he's like, well, there's a shorthand with Star Trek. And I said, I don't know, if you put people in uniform on a ship, I think people are going to get it. And so he said, oh, let me think about that. So then 2 weeks later, he calls me, that script, that Star Trek show we were talking about, I actually wrote the script and I sold it to 20. It's a different world for some of us, but thank God. And I was, so Seth really just went all in. I mean, he I contributed some ideas to the show, but it was all his, and he just did, what came out wasn't a desire to an homage to Next Generation specifically. It was to do his version of Star Trek, and because he's such a Next Generation fan, it has a kind of a feeling about it. I mean, Seth talks about the comfortable looking bridge on Next Generation, and that definitely is a feeling that came through when he was talking to the production designers on Orville. That same kind of feeling, and so it all just sort of happened. It didn't sort of happen that he was trying to necessarily do a Star Trek homage. It was more, this is my version of it. And,
well, I remember the whole sense of the humor going to be offbeat, kind of, the quirky, weird, took a long time to find the groove.
And there was, and it moved away from that a little bit, although it's still there in the later seasons. There was a little bit, leaned a little bit heavier on the comedy in the beginning, and I think, Seth especially felt like, let's be serious. Let's be confident that we're doing we're doing a serious show, even if there's some light character moments. So.
Yeah. Well, I chronologically messed up. I skipped over something that I alluded to, but I said you were around at least for a day in the 4th season of Enterprise.
I came back to visit. Well, Mike Sussman called and said, "You got to come see these sets." And there's me with Terry Metalis
and Mike here.
Mike and Juan Fernandez and
Juan Fernandez,
and
2 assistants who wound up writing, obviously, and good things.
Mike Sussman
and Mike and his famous. Mike told me about his President Archer pitch years ago, and now it's making news. It's funny to me because it's like, well, he's been talking about this in quiet ways.
I talked to him about it, probably 2 years ago. We kind of got about it, but I hope that it gets some traction. It's certainly getting some traction on the internet, which is nice.
And there you go. Everybody's going to have fun.
Lean. But yeah, so I just came back to visit to see the old sets.
So before I left Enterprise, I went, so here's the cast shot. Did you have any, I think you mentioned a couple of things about Scott, any interactions when you were on staff and thinking about?
Not really.
I know they used to say, Rick used to tell everybody, don't go over to the sets, or maybe he'd relax that by Enterprise, but there didn't used to be.
I got to know a little bit, Dominic a little bit, and I really didn't talk to Connor till we did a commentary for The Forgotten, and that was really my longest conversation with him, and I've gotten to know Scott. I don't think Scott ever doesn't remember me. We've had a bunch of conversations. Our kids were at the same school actually, but the others I really didn't talk to. John I've gotten to know very well, but not really when I was on the staff. I really didn't have any.
Yeah. Well, if I this is kind of wacky, I know, and this is from 94, not 2004, but if I show you a map of the lot, does anything, with the Hart building and Cooper way over here, and then the stages, of course, Enterprise had these 3 stages, 8, 9, and 18.
Yeah. Well, the thing about too is that before I got on Enterprise, I sort of left this out of my resume. When I was writing comedy, I went into pitch to all the Star Treks. I pitched to Next Gen twice. First, I pitched to Ron Moore and the Writers Guild trainee Brandon Braga. That was, and then a few months later, I pitched to René, great guy, and then I pitched over to Deep Space Nine, and I pitched first to Robert Wolfe, and I stayed friends, and then I pitched to the entire staff, which was crazy to be in that room with those people, and then And then I pitched over at Voyager to Jerry Taylor and to Brannon at some point. And then eventually got Brannon's office when I was on Enterprise. But I've been trying to get on those shows my whole careers, and I never did. But
So did you like take DS9 a real belly laugher or what?
no, I went serious. I went serious. But I couldn't sell anything. So it's hard.
Hmm.
It's hard,
Well,
hard.
yeah, got in there. I'm trying to see what. Oh, so I just had some random pictures. You've talked about. Here's Andre Bermanis, who was science
Yeah.
advisor turned writer, and here's Chris, who just got on a new. What's he on now? He was on stage at the Emmys, and I was like really happy for
Well,
him.
he had done Severance,
Yeah.
but then he's also now done that Godzilla show on Apple, which he'd been doing for a couple of years.
Okay.
And Andre has been was on with us on the Orville.
Yes, and worked on on the revival of Cosmos.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. All good guys.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's the two Bs
Yeah, there they are.
out on location.
Rick looks very happy.
Yeah. What do you think about the Berman years? And well, here's the thing. Here's one. This was an old internet meme when internet memes were new. Do you think this was fair?
Yeah, no, terrible. I mean, that's
I know.
it's so wrong. It's hilarious, but it's. I think that what's interesting is
I'll pull back.
I said this earlier. Rick Berman, the Star Trek we loved in the '90s. Rick deserves credit for that. I mean, he came in to Next Generation. You guys, if you've never seen Chaos on the Bridge, that documentary that Shatner produced, that talks about those early years, and Larry, you obviously know all that story, all those stories. Rick came in a really difficult kind of political situation with Gene and then the other showrunners, and he figured it out, and he got Michael, and Rick deserves credit for these super talented writers he hired, and was he perfect? No, but all the stuff I loved from those years, he deserves a lot of the credit for. And it's interesting because he takes it on the chin, I think. And then same thing with Brannon. Again, some of Brannon's Next Gen episodes are the best of Star Trek.
Yeah,
They're the
yeah.
best of Star Trek.
Cause and effect, and
Cause and effect, and well, just there's so many, all good things. And he co-wrote, and Rick and Brannon co-wrote, to me, the best pilot of Star Trek. Star Trek Enterprise is far and away the best pilot of any of the series.
Yeah. And I think Ed's right. This is I think they're out in the cornfield shooting on the pilot here.
Yeah. And so, no one's perfect. Michael Piller, who again I was a giant fan of, there's some real stinkers on his watch. It's not.
Well, Rick hired Michael too, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, but there's nothing. TV is, you're doing 26 episodes a year. You're gonna have some bad ones.
Yeah.
Looking at the record of these guys, you can't. And again, I've worked closely now with Brandon Orville. He's a very talented writer. He's co-wrote some of the best Orvilles, or wrote the best Orvilles. And, so I don't know. I think that they unfairly take it on the chin and don't get the credit they deserve for creating some of the best Star Trek,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, okay. So all this is happening, Family Guy's happening, before Orville though, and I went by a couple of times. In fact, we got to watch you all do a table read for Family Guy. But it was because I was by and you let me, thank you for that. But the main reason I was there was once or twice we came by and talked about these books that you did totally out. So tell everybody about, you did the autobiography of Kirk and Picard.
Yeah.
And then you did the 150 years, the first 150 of the Federation, which was an amazing, and I thought it was a dead kind of format because I love those. How did this gig come up for you?
Well, the first one was the Federation book, which is hard to get a hold. I think you can get it on eBay for not too much money, but
it's the plastic base with Sulu's voice.
That's the one you want, yeah. But Dave Rossi, who I don't know if your group knows who that is, but Dave.
I think Dave's been a guest before, yeah.
Yeah, who's a great guy. And after I'd left Star Trek, Dave Rossi called me and said, "Hey, will you have a meeting with me and John Van Citters, who's head of, you obviously know who Van Citters is. He's the head of Paramount, or Star Trek, merchandising." Then I go to lunch with them, and they sort of say, "We want to do a Star Trek history book," and they want to do, it was based on this actual history book about, actually about John Adams, maybe, or it had documents in it, like similes of documents, and they wanted to do
right
with Star Trek, and they wanted to hire a TV writer who could write in different voices. And I'd never written a book before. And I said, I've never written a book before. And they asked if I wanted to do it, and I said I really did want to do it. And so I got to write Federation, and it was a blast. And I think the main reason I did it was I got to do a chapter on the Romulan War, which was the first time anybody had really done that. Like, obviously the novelizations did it. And then you, in your maps book, I love the fact that you did a battle map of
I did yours because yours was all detailed, and I didn't know which one I wish there hadn't been a dichotomy. That's why I keep wanting an on-screen version.
So we can erase these, like, non-canonical, but I got to do that, and I love that chapter the most. But it was really this project to sort of fill in the blanks, and figure out what did we know.
A lot of blanks.
And and then I came up with the idea of like fake quotes and footnotes, and that maybe explain things, and in a comedic way sometimes. And I'm very proud of the book. I mean, I think it reads really well, and for a Star Trek fan, it's a fun book. But
well, I was shocked because I hadn't seen. Well, I guess it'd been a few years since you'd left Enterprise, and that was before the biographies. But I was shocked to get it and then be reading along, and you didn't know at the time. But you had used. I did when they were shooting Generations, and Penny Jude was Herman's assistant. And I was doing the companion by then, and I'd done the first one, and was trying to get info from the assistants because they're the only ones you could get anything from. And I had a deadline. Like I have an official book with a deadline, and can't get anybody to help me, but the assistants will help you. And Penny was saying that we're supposed to have this Picard scrapbook, and the prop guys have no idea what to put in, and we don't know how much will be on camera, and they're putting in. But everybody has old French stuff. We need some. Like, what about between now and their future? And I said, oh, we can do that. And so I had a Picard at the end of the Romulan War and the Battle of Algeron. Treaty of Algeron. Yeah. Anyway, I did 2 news clippings, like they were printouts, and they weren't on camera, but they found their way out. But you used but they were all the names were things of my family.
Thing that was established. Also, something about Federation Day, right? Wasn't
that
too? Yeah. And they had your kids' names in it or something, or there was something.
I had Janet's and my kids and my mom and dad's names as anagrams.
They made it into my book, not because I knew they were related to you, but because you would already.
No, you didn't know. I remember you were like, "Oh, well, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have used it, Larry." No.
My Prime Directive made it into Prodigy, which I was so proud of. Like my playing out of the Prime Directive, because all I did was sort of take what was known and sort of put it in a one document kind of thing, and then they used that on Prodigy, which I really made me feel great. That like it then sort of becomes something that was non-canonical now because they used it is now canonical. Like I love that.
It's wacky weird the way that happens. But anyway, so how did that segue to? Oh, you know what? We've been at it an hour. Are you good to go?
Fine,
Okay,
fine,
okay,
fine.
okay.
As long as
We're getting there.
as long as you want to hear me yap, I'm happy to say.
Oh,
But
we'll hear you yap. Yeah. Because I want to hear about how the 150 years book transmogrified into these, which are different, very different kinds of books too, in a way.
and then Dave said, again, it was Dave Rossi who said they wanted to do Dave Rossi pitched the idea of Captain Kirk's autobiography. And again, that's Dave's idea. It was not mine. But they came to me, they asked me if I wanted to do it.
Oh, there we are.
That's probably the thing of the three books, the one I'm the most proud of, because that book, was really about figuring out some things. Like I had some realizations about Kirk. One that during the original series, if you do the math from Wrath of Khan, during the original series, he's an absent father. David Marcus is alive during the original series. So that means all those stories of Kirk on the Enterprise are a guy who has a son somewhere that he's not seeing. And I love that. I thought that added this dimension, and added dimension to some of the stories of the original series, because there were always these father-son stories with certain of his officers, like Bailey, and with Farragut.
Garvik.
Harvick, thank you.
Yeah. Or anytime the red shirt died, his father helped me get in the academy.
Right,
or
and I put all that in the book, but I. And then there were, so that was an interesting thing. And then again, even though it's not fully canon, the idea that McCoy also had a kid, that he wasn't seeing a daughter, and that maybe this is how these two guys bonded. I have that scene in the book, and that there was there were interesting sort of bittersweet things about Kirk that I thought I really wanted to write about, and pulling them all together in this book. And some of the book, I think people were disappointed, because some of the book where I'm talking about original series episodes maybe feel like I'm just quickly summarizing episodes, and I never quite figured that out. I never quite figured out how to write those so that because I felt an obligation to, when we're in those original series times, make sure that I'm paying service to.
But not every episode is Sitting on the Edge of Forever, or not for Kirk.
Right. And I spent a lot of time on Sitting on the Edge of Forever. That's an important piece of that.
Yeah, and I guess Operation Annihilate, because his brother dies.
Right. Yeah. And and then they did well enough, and they asked if I wanted to do another. Actually, they made a contract for 2 books, Picard and Spock. And so I wrote the Picard book. And then when I was writing the Spock book, this is when Discovery was coming out. And it was important to Paramount that I make sure that the Michael Burnham piece be part of the Spock autobiography. And I couldn't make it work for me. Like I had to, I just couldn't, I didn't like that. I didn't like Michael Burnham growing up in Spock's house. I just don't know why they did it. I didn't think it's not necessary to her character. It's not necessary. And I couldn't make it work in my head. And so I actually gave the money back, and they gave it to Una, who I think did a lovely job. She got it in a great way, I thought. Those were fun. My Picard autobiography does not in any way now gel with what they did on the Picard series. But
I was going to say everybody who had done the novels had to do a reboot, time vortex, whatever picks up.
Yeah.
Well, before we hit some of the more recent things here, I just want to share this. I don't know if you have shared this, but the day I was by, we were talking about the Kirk book. This was on your wall, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah.
Did this survive the fire?
Unfortunately not. So
I'll send you this if you want to even try to attempt to.
It's interesting. I think the artist has a digital of it. He offered it to me, and I haven't gotten it from him yet. But thank you.
Oh, good. Okay.
But yeah, so one of the artists on Family Guy did that, and if he was a giant Star Trek fan, Mick Cassidy, and he he had done something like this for Seth, and so then I commissioned him to do it for a different one for me, and it's interesting, like the crossover of Star Trek characters
Uh-huh.
and
Like
Family
Lois and
Guy
Edith.
characters is like kind of a funny thing. Like there's like some, you know, like Brian is Riker and all the,
Yeah.
Adam, there's this weird, fun things in that. It was a great, yeah, I forgot all about that. Wow.
Lois is Edith, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right.
it's funny. It's everybody, and
Yeah.
he's yeah. Anyway, I mean, and you can stand here and be at it. So Seth has one kind of like this, only his is full of everybody is crewman Rivers.
It was interesting that Mick did something for Family Guy would have an art show. The artists would do Family Guy inspired art, and then there would be an auction. And he did a Star Trek one, and it was different than this. The character layout was different. He probably didn't include all the characters, and then uh, Seth outbid me for it. Couldn't compete with him. And then I asked Mick, "Will you do? Well, I'll pay you to do."
Oh, he's got him down here.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So Mick did it for me. So yeah, it was personally.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, anyway, that's fun. So let me keep rolling for. Oh, so then the interim years, Comic-Con. It was good to see you up repping. Obviously, this was way back. It's probably in the
Yeah,
aughts.
that was probably, yeah, it had to be, yeah, because that's how
Yeah.
I was doing Family Guy panels.
So I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I skipped over this. So how did you wind up running for Writers Guild president? This is right during the strikes, but before this, you actually had a term as the WGA president. How did
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
that?
No, I had worked at Futurama with a writer by the name of Pat Barone, who was about at that time in the early 2000s what was the Writers Guild president, and he asked me to run for the board, and I was on the board for a number of years, and then eventually I was for vice president and then president. Uh, my union is very important to me. It's allowed me to have health insurance. I've gotten residuals for my work. That's all because of the collective power of writers, and their
Hmm.
ability to strike when necessary to get improvements in their contracts. I was raised in a union family. Unions are very important to me. I think they're not valued enough in our society, and they do a lot of good. And so the idea that I could be a part of my union leadership and then lead my union was a very gratifying experience.
Yeah. I just so there's a couple here. I was trying to remember though. So well, I can't remember if I should say this now or later. But during the strikes, I say the strikes plural. Writers started off, actors got in eventually, but a lot of actors supporting the writers in the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
did you? And I'm just going to one specific moment. The '08, the '07, '08 strike.
Yeah.
Did you take part in the Star Trek Day theme pick?
Both Star Trek days on both strikes, I was out of town.
Okay,
It
you were
was
out of town. Okay, because I said I don't.
2007. I had
Yeah.
to go to New York because I was going to New York on this secret mission for the Guild and to talk to these advertisers about something. And it was the day of the Star Trek strike. And then I wasn't out of town in 2000. In this strike, I was scheduled to speak. I think it was at Universal that day. They had scheduled me to give a speech, and I couldn't not do that. Yeah, and so I missed Star Trek Day on the strike.
But then the Star Trek Day, by the time the actors were officially in, you were over there.
I
Because
came I came late. You and I ran into each other, but everybody had already
you
left.
remember that. So here's talk about speaking. Here you are doing your thing because that was the main point of it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, now here's the thing. I should said this before we get to the strikes. But when you're president,
yeah,
before you graduated down to the running the negotiate or co-chairing the negotiating committee.
Right.
You all did the outside world, it was a snooze to them, but inside the industry, that reform fight that you all led about revamping the agency fees, that was
Yeah,
kind of a
I
big
don't
deal of
know
your
how
time.
much into the weeds you want me to get in on
Well,
that.
just give us the 50-word log line for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So basically, over the years, agents had grown in wealth and power by getting something called a packaging fee. And in the old days, what that meant was you would take two people, a writer, or three people, a writer, an actor, a director, and you package them together. And we represent all these three people. And so rather than take commission from these three people, you, the studio, you're going to pay us, and you get our clients. And that was this practice that the agents felt like they were doing something. They were like taking these disparate kind of talents, putting them together on a project, and
generally younger, less, they weren't advanced, right? They were getting off the ground talents.
well, I mean, a combination. Sometimes you have a younger writer with a big name actor or director, or you mix it up, but they were doing this work, and it became this sort of common practice to get this packaging fee, and that over the last 40 years it morphed into something where they weren't doing the work and putting it together. They would just get the packaging fee because they represented one person, and usually the writer. And what happened with that is then they stopped fighting as hard for writer salaries because they're getting paid money by the studio no matter what. And as a result, because they weren't taking 10% of my money, for instance, it didn't matter as much to them how much money I made. And so here they were making all this money off of the talent of the people that they represented, but they weren't fighting as hard for their money because they were making money directly.
Regardless. Yeah.
Regardless. And in a hand over fist way, they were making a lot of money. And they were originally allowed to do this because of an agreement with the Writers Guild, agreement that said they could. And we decided we're putting an end to that.
The time is over, because they had no incentive to help their clients, really.
And it was a big, ugly fight, and we won.
So, yay, President Goodman on that one.
It took 2 years, but we won, and we got rid of that packaging, and now agents, if they want to get money from a writer, they got to fight harder to get money for that writer.
And then it was, okay, well, I'll raise you, I'll see your agency packaging reform and raise you the strikes here. So, boom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was really, hey, it's me and Kurtzman, look. And the woman
and Kylie
on the far
over here.
left, right, yeah.
She has a planet named after her.
She's also on
Academy.
Right,
yeah. She's climbing that. She told me, so the first day they sat down to plan Discovery, it was Alex and I guess Akiva in the room, and she was the assistant taking notes.
Oh, wow.
So it's like she said, I'm one of the first three people that had any idea what was happening with Discovery when it was super secret. Anyway.
The writer between them is Scott Alexander, who co-wrote some great movies, Ed Wood and Larry Flint, and he's the OJ TV series, really talented guy.
Yep.
Yeah, so the strike was really about how writers now. Oh, that's Bill Wolkoff of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, a great Guild member, and Brandon.
Bridging generation, speaking
there
of.
There you go. And that was more about how writers were not getting paid anymore.
Yep. So, early in a month in, I guess.
It was really early.
Yeah. And this is the second strike when the actors were in. Yeah, everybody was gone, and you came late, and I grabbed a picture afterwards.
You were there.
And you were there.
And you were there. And you were there.
So was the strike worth it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're in a difficult period in the business now, but if a writer is working, they're getting paid more because the problem is there are less jobs for writers. That has nothing to do with the strike. But if a writer is getting paid, they're getting paid more, and we have important protections from artificial intelligence, which was a big part of the fight as well. And then there are a lot of other things too in very different areas of the business of writers in the business. But the chief one was, in an age of streaming and in this thing, if you're going to work as a writer, you should, writers used to be if you got into the business, it was an affluent business. You did well financially. That's not true anymore. People often have second jobs if they want to, which is crazy given how much money the studios make from TV and movies. That if they're hiring writers, writers shouldn't have to get a second job. Not because the work they're doing is so like amazing but because the company is making millions and billions of dollars from these things. Right, everybody working on these things should be paid at least a living wage, and that's this is a problem we're facing in all businesses now these days. So.
I feel like you all and then the 07-08 strike feels, because I only vaguely remember the one, 80s, it was the one that came famously in TNG's second season, but that one was one that went on and wasn't entirely successful. No. I think the public is now so media savvy because of cable and streaming, and because we have our phones, and because of all the celebrity shows and the backstage shows and bonus features on DVD. But I think it was the 07-08 strike went a good way toward winning the general public over to their cause, and not being, because there used to be the old, those Hollywood elites, they all make so much money, why should I care about it? It's like what you just said. No, the working actors, the working writers, the crew people who are spending the IATSE folks when they're up for, and then this one, I just felt like you all, what if it's important, you won the PR battle with the public.
Yeah, there wasn't I think that.
And part of it was the AI thing was so scary. You all were kind of the canary in the coal mine about it in a lot of ways.
And the AI thing was scary, but it was also something that was happening in this country, because it was the summer of strikes, and the UPS drivers went on strike. There were all these other strikes, the hotel workers, there were all these, because everybody who works was not getting paid.
Yeah. Well, UPS drivers, I think, too.
Yeah. Yes, was big, and so we made common cause with a lot of people writers, although writers are always going to be looked at as if they're elites, because we don't work, we're not carrying packages for UPS, we're, in our sneakers and jeans in a writer's room. But that there's the fact that they could see us out on the picket line and we're fighting, and then the actors going out made a huge difference too, because actors have it worse than writers. Very few actors make a living wage pursuing their career, and yet again, these companies are making a lot of money from these things. So why can't we be paid, enough to live on? And I want to answer these questions.
Go for it. Yeah. I was going to say, having all the execs getting these insane 3-figure packages when you're talking about what you can and can't, when you do the math and here's the entire ask from the WGA, this much, here's what Zaslav makes, here's what all the CEOs, and it's like a fraction of what they're getting paid in a year. Yeah. And the public could understand that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So Lana, how are the writers planning for and maybe using AI? Well, I don't know how an individual writer uses AI. They may be using it in their work or doing research. But what we got in this contract was which we were worried about, was a studio can't do an AI script and then hand it to a writer to rewrite it, which is something we were really worried about, because that writer who would be handed an AI script would be payless. So we got in language, the first writer needs to be a human being, which sounds like science fiction, like that. In fact, you got to put that in a contract. But that was a huge fight, and we got it. So that individual writers, I do know, use AI but I don't think, I think AI is coming for writers, but I think it's coming for more other people first in more, you know, it's coming for lawyers, it's coming for people in who work in the business in lighting and special effects, and we have a minute before AI is gonna be good enough to write a script that you're gonna wanna see made. Um, uh, and that answered, I think, Carlos's question too. Philip, it feels like writers have to make their own stuff due to the limited number of jobs right now. Is there hope? Well, there's always hope. I think that the issue there is there is a lot less job. We had a huge expansion of the business in streaming. All the streamers were making all sorts of stuff, and now there's this contraction and there's this consolidation of companies, which is not good news for jobs. But they're always going to be making things. This is not going away as a business, and so it's just a much, much, much more competitive business than it's ever been. I've never seen it this bad. I have trouble getting work.
Well, it feels like everything got bloated with peak TV.
Yeah.
Right. When they wanted to make, they were just ordering series like crazy, and then the contraction happened. But also the 10 episode seasons for everybody, the 26 down to 10, which was one of the big strike issues.
Yeah, and we don't know that we can control that, but we can control what a writer is going to get paid if they're only doing 8 episodes, and
and their health and their pension and all of that.
That. So, it's just like an incredibly competitive business, and let's see. You're an MFA candidate, San Diego State. Yeah. I mean, doing your own stuff. I mean, the things that didn't exist when I broke in is the internet, and if you can get people, you can find an audience that way. It's a lot of hard work. It's not easy to do that, but there are people who do it. There's a guy who makes sitcoms on YouTube. I don't know his name, but like he has a huge audience, but he works really hard to get that audience, but he also does good work. I mean, it's a combination of the two.
Well, here's the thing. It kind of overlaps a little bit. Phil said, did the strike really cause things like the sale of Paramount, or is it just the excuse they blamed it on?
Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. No, they were all headed in that direction, and I've heard that Ellison, I forgot his first name. I should know his first name. The guy's the new head of Paramount. He's a big Star Trek fan, and he wants to do it. And I think when
co-produced 2 of the Kelvin movies,
and now that in this world of intellectual property of the companies always doing things that there's some name recognition. Star Trek is one of those things. So I'm hoping that we get to see some new Star Trek. I heard they're not doing any JJ movies, any JJ verse anymore, and that'll be interesting to see what they do, if they bring back Kirk and Spock or they go a new direction. I don't know.
Well, don't you want to see another corner? Don't you want to see another corner of the Star Trek unit? We were talking about the Romulan War on film finally, or whatever.
I want to see a talented creator who's a Star Trek fan, as you say, starting with a Star Trek fan, but a talented creator getting a chance to like jump in and do something fresh and fun. I'm always on board for that. I think I loved JJ's first movie. I didn't love Into Darkness because I felt like, why are we doing Khan again? But the first one, I really enjoyed it. I actually had a great Star Trek fan experience. Seth MacFarlane got tickets to the premiere. He couldn't go. He gave them to me. My son and I went, and we sat behind Walter Koenig, George Takei, Marina Sirtis, and Jonathan Frakes. And I got to watch Walter Koenig laugh at Chekhov on screen, trying to get the computer to understand his code. That was a joyous evening.
There you go, your memory. Well, you kind of, I mean, we're sitting here because it feels like there's 2 or 3 levels all happening right now. One is the industry shaking out, what's streaming, how are the theaters coming back, from movies and all of that. And then, and is cable dead? Is linear going to hang on? And then at the same time, you've got the specific with Star Trek of Ellison buying Paramount and Warner Brothers too now. That's crazy. Like, and we go from peak TV where the streaming is, we got to have something on all the time so we don't have churn. And now now we're going to go back and contract.
Right.
But do you think we can get back to more than 10 episode seasons? Do you think
Well,
that's going
I think so, because I think what's happened is all the streamers have now kind of figured out like they want to do ad-supported streaming, and that means commercials while you watch your streaming shows. They're making some of that money back. But all that is what network television was. So if you have advertisers paying this kind of stuff, you want me to lean in a little more, Larry?
Oh, you're keep talking.
But if we want, if they want advertisers to pay good rates for these things, then I should hold up my get another shot.
Oh, there we go. Okay, well, we can post, but you got to talk.
My exploration set phaser, but that I painted. I'm very proud of this.
Very nice. I cut mine apart so you could pull off the hand phaser. I put all the sides.
Oh wow! Oh,
and the wheel turns on top.
You
Yeah.
topped me. You topped me. Anyway, I think if we get back to advertising, like Pluto, you guys watch Pluto TV. You probably do. All the Star Treks are on there, but they have ads, and it's very much like scrolling through cable channels. And I think that all the streamers are going to get back to that. In which case, they'll want to produce more things because they'll want to make more money from the advertisers. So I do see us getting to a form of what we had before, which can take a while.
Yeah. Well, and again, they're waiting to see what the new on the granular level. What's Ellison and his team going to do for the movies? And
I'm sure that for him, it's going to be who is that creator who I want to be in business with. David Ellison speaking now. David Ellison saying to himself, "Who is that creator that I want to say, okay, give me your Star Trek," and he's going to have to make a decision. Unfortunately, based on business, and it might not be the right person, it might not be a fanboy, it might just be somebody with an idea that Ellison likes, who's done something, that's how our business works, unfortunately. What did you last do? Why do I want to be in business with you? But sometimes, if you guys are Star Wars fans, Andor and Rogue One, great example of Tony Gilroy, who knew what to do. He came in with an idea and did his version of Star Wars. And I don't know if you guys watch that stuff, but I love it. And you have, Jon Favreau, who did The Mandalorian, I think also great. So finding that creator that Ellison wants to give the movie to or give the TV series to, and then hopefully that creator is somebody who cares the way we do.
Did you get, there's a lot of people who've worked and some of the shows had generations, kind of like Voyager had generations of writers.
Yeah.
But Mike McMahan on Lower Decks talk about a vision for what you want. And the Hagemans and Aaron on Prodigy and Terry coming in on Picard after they got over what Patrick did not want them to do, and they finally got it. Yeah. Did you watch any of the moderns?
Sure, yeah. No, I'm the writer named Ash Miller. Do you know him? He's one of the glorious Trek experts. Works with Mark Altman.
Oh yeah, okay.
And Ash has a thing called a test pattern Trekkie. That's what I am. I'll watch it all. And I liked some of it. I didn't love others. I think Picard season 3 was a real step up. I was really happy for Terry because he got to do that. And I love some of Strange New World. I think some of those episodes are really good. So.
Well, I talk a lot about when people get
Prodigy's great, and Mike is a friend of mine. Lower Decks was
Yeah, don't you think Prodigy never got the attention it was? I mean, I was always beaten. It's not just a kid's show. Everybody should watch it, and
It's a hard thing because they elevated what looked like a kid show into something that was a great Star Trek show.
yeah. Well, above Star Trek itself, so many friends of mine are saying, "Oh, I'm going to have to leave LA," like all different guilds, all different careers. Do you think LA as Hollywood is going to be able to rebound against all the, this tax credit? It feels like it's a drop in the bucket for what they need, but do you think we're able to get back? I mean, because you're looking at it from the union perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately not. I think we continue to fight and the unions continue to fight, but I mean, there's a Rob Lowe reality show on Fox. What's the show I'm talking about? I can't remember the name of it.
Vaguely, but yeah.
But there's a show that he does. It's like a game show, and it's cheaper for them to shoot it in Ireland, to fly everybody over to Ireland and shoot it. There's nothing that tells you it's in Ireland. It's a game show, but they go, they shoot all the episodes, they come back, and it's cheaper for them, and that just tells you something about the economics of things. And I don't know how you fix that. Like I am very worried about AI eliminating a lot of jobs in the movie and TV business. That's going to increase that thing more, especially technicians, people in lighting and sets and those kinds of things. I mean, it's really gonna hurt. And I don't see enough. I don't see enough fight from the companies and from our government against AI. We're at the precipice of something I think really damaging, and I don't know how you stop it.
Yeah. It's somebody said, well, all the jobs in Atlanta are now going to the UK. So it's how are we going to get?
Atlanta. I shot a show in Atlanta last year, and yeah, I've heard that too. That So.
Congrats on Honor Society, by the way.
Thank you.
If anybody hasn't seen that, it's on Netflix or Prime.
Plus.
Oh, Paramount Plus.
This whole crew has to have Paramount Plus. It's also on Amazon, I think. But it's a fun high school movie. It has nothing to do with Star Trek.
Well, here's the thing, David. I know you're okay. I'll ask this. It's not an Orville. Is that last season of Orville actually going to happen, or is it as the ship sailed?
As the ship has not sailed.
Okay.
I don't know when. I don't ever count Seth out. He wants to do more. He's very important to the studio. So I think there will be another season at some point, but he's a bit busy man, and for him to do it, he'll want to write it, be in that writer's room, and then he needs to shoot it, star in it, whatever. And so it's got to fit into his schedule, and I don't know when that happens. I'm not saying it's definitely happening, but it's definitely not canceled. Orville is definitely there's never count Seth out. He wants to do more. That's what I invest in. So
yeah. Do you think it would still be on Hulu, or is that up in the air too?
No, it would be on Hulu.
It would be on. Okay, contractually. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, the last question. If talking about Ellison and Paramount and all this, and depending on what happens with Family Guy and working with Seth and all that, would you, if somebody walked up to you and gave you the keys to Star Trek, would you want to do a series? Do you have an idea for a series?
That's a good question. No one's ever going to do that, so I don't know that I don't really have to worry.
Or would you go campaign? Would you pitch? If they said, "Here's the door, guys, come tell it."
Absolutely. I do think that with a franchise like Star Trek, it is going to be the A-level people, and there's so many. Like
they're in public now.
Honestly, I know that but given what he did with Severance, I want Ben Stiller to do Star Trek.
He's a huge fan.
He's a giant fan. His company is Red Hour Productions. I'm a huge fan of Severance. I think it's a great show that he is the director of. what would Ben Stiller do in Star Trek? That's a really interesting question. That's a fanboy. That's a guy who is he could, hang with the rest of us on trivia
Yep.
about original series, and so
But you said his company is called Red Hour Productions. So back to Landru. Yeah.
So like that's an interesting thing. So that's going to be the level of people that Ellison is going to be talking to, and so I think that for me, if there's a new Star Trek series, I would love to work on it. I don't know that I'll ever be the person who gets to pitch his idea, but I think it's about figuring out, if you're not doing Kirk and Spock, it all starts with the characters. Who are your main characters, and finding something original. And it's very hard to top Kirk and Spock, from in my mind. And Picard comes close. He's amazing, but that's also a combination of actor and data. Those are, Roddenberry did kind of do it twice, capture lightning bottle twice. You got to give him credit for that. And but I think it's like figuring out who are your. But it's captain on a ship, exploring strange new worlds.
That's what's got to be. All right. Well, listen, man, I will thank you for going overtime with us tonight. But
my pleasure. I had a great time.
Hope we. I didn't stir any juices that you didn't realize you have an itch to come up with a pitch. You didn't get the pitch itch, right? To have something ready.
I'm too practical, Larry. I'm too practical. I'm not going to let myself fantasize about that. I'll go write a book, and then I'll get to do what I want.
Now that you're an old book writer, now that you're an old veteran,
I don't want to get my hopes up that I'm somehow going to be the guy who gets to do that. But I'm hopeful as a fan. I'm a Star Trek fan first before I'm a Star Trek writer, and I am always so hopeful that somebody, as you said, somebody is going to give us something. To me, the moment where you sort of, you discover original Star Trek, but then there's that moment to me in the third season of Next Gen when it was really Yesterday's Enterprise that
we are scary alike. That was mine. That was my Next Gen moment.
I was liking it in the beginning of the third season.
Right.
That episode, and you're like, oh.
That's when I thought, oh my God, now an episode in the 80s now is equaling the power of what the movies of the original got to.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. And again, Way of the Warrior and Deep Space Nine. That was that one for me. And The Visitor, I think, too, was another one. But I think where it's this is just all right, we're there. And I want that feeling as a fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, Dave, thanks so much for dropping by and doing this and catching up and sharing the wisdom, because you've been in a hot seat for several years now. Are you still in a capacity with the union, or are you retired after?
Not an official one, and I'm happy not to be. So.
We will let Dave go, and thanks so much, man.
Thanks again. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.